The study of human inequality, in fact, began very early, at the beginning of the rise of capitalism. There was a great thinker, Rousseau, a Frenchman. What book did he write? On the origins and foundations of man-made inequality. In this book, he was the first in the history of European thought to seriously discuss the roots of private property and its fundamental inequality. Of course, Rousseau's thoughts were in the formative stage, and managed only to put forward a romantic critique of the reality of capital. Rousseau's thought is summarized in one sentence: the progress of capital and science has no absolute value in itself. In his world, science and capital have only relative value, and absolute value is human good intentions and will. Right? That was Rousseau. This had greatly inspired Kant, who went on to postulate that we cannot rely on scientific reason alone to build an equal, reasonable, and ideal human society. Equality in human society, or the basis of its ideal state, is not scientifically based. Kant's important point of principle. So what is the concept put before us? Bill Gates relies on scientific reason to design an ideal capitalist system, which shows from the start he lacks an understanding of Rousseau's thought. We know that a reasonable society is not established through scientific reason. Let me continue to explain. Bill Gates is right when he said that it is not that we humans are too cold, but that the world is too complex, so we have to turn our faces in the face of inequality and suffering. If you don't look, you can still sleep at night, right? We are all like that today. He said that the reason is that the world is too complicated, not that human hearts are too evil, and that is right. So how complex is the world? Such that we cannot see through it, cannot understand it, cannot grasp its essence and its future trends? At this point a person comes into the discussion, Karl Marx. After Marx's philosophical revolution, all the complexities of the capitalist world come to the surface. Today we Chinese are probably not very interested in Marx's teachings, thinking that he is outdated. But in fact, Marx, his analysis and prediction for capitalism, has not been surpassed by anyone up to now, such that Marx was selected as the great man of the century, and later as the great man of the millennium. In the first selection, his ranking was even ranked ahead of Einstein, and the second time he was selected as a great man of the millennium, he is compared with Socrates and Plato. So by the way, how can the philosophy department of Fudan University not talk about Marx's teachings? In France in the 20th century, the most important existentialist thinker was Sartre, who said that Marx's doctrine is the only contemporary philosophy that cannot be surpassed thus far. This is Sartre's understanding of Marx. We will not talk about him for now, but we are going to mention how Marx's teachings will enlighten us. As I said earlier, Bill Gates' study of innovative capitalism, creative capitalism, its whole set of ideas has been developed within a frame of reference that is rational, still in the scope of scientific reason. But we know the starting point for a better society cannot be rationally conceived. The basis for human existence is not rational in the first place. Where is Gates wrong? Why did Rousseau have to argue that the only absolute value in human society is goodwill and intentions? Yes, it's beyond the realm of science. But he couldn't expand his reasoning, so we called him a romantic, and now we have to wait for Marx to reveal the truth of the matter. How did Marx explain the truth about this? If you have the opportunity, you should read this book, which is Marx's 1844 manuscript of economic philosophy, also known as the Paris Manuscripts. The significance of this work is that it is a landmark work in the history of Western thought. Although this book was not prepared for publication by Marx, it contains the manuscripts and notes he had written down to clarify issues for himself, and remained hidden in a drawer, only to be discovered and published in the following century, that is, in the 1930s. The first chapter of the manuscripts, on wages of labor, gives a profound revelation in the context of the subject we are now discussing. In the words that Bill Gates uses to celebrate capitalism, observing indeed there is social improvement through equality in the market. That capitalism provides a wide range of economic opportunities, and it provides a wide range of economic opportunities for every individual. Those words, however, contain a big problem. There is a fatal inconsistency in this line of reasoning. What did Marx reveal? The unequal distribution of wealth among different strata or different ethnic groups in today's world is itself the result of market equality, the product of market equality. That is important. Marx discussed what is capital. When capitalism came to the world, it ended the hierarchical society of the European Middle Ages, and what force did it rely on to end the social structure of the political hierarchy in the European Middle Ages? What was the power behind it? It was derived from the money accumulated in the pockets of merchants at the end of the Middle Ages. For the merchant, it is called money or commercial capital, and at the time he does not associate it with capital. It is just money that the merchant accumulates when he conducts his activities in the sphere of commodity trading, from the exchange of goods and money. It is not strictly capital at this time, but this results in the accumulation of money. To what extent? Money is accumulated by the businessman in quantities that are beyond what he needs to consume in his lifetime, or even in his next life, right? The extra money that is earned beyond the needs of personal consumption is a new social power, stored in the pockets of merchants. Although it was not realized at the time, it heralds the birth of a new kind of social power. In the system of social power, a new center of power was born, setting the stage for capitalism. What does it mean to say that productive forces determine production relations? Is capital a production relationship? Yes, it is. Are production relationships rational? No, they are irrational. Whether it's feudal production relationships or capitalist production relationships, they are all machines of power, a system of power. Remember this point. Then, by subsequently describing these production relationships, which are actually power relationships, they become economic relationships. Production relationships are not equivalent to economic relationships, so please pay attention to this point. After production relationships are expressed in the field of economics, they become the objects of study in economic science, which are called economic relationships. Of course, economic relationships can be discussed logically, but originally they are non-logical, they reflect power. I am glad to bring Marx's great insights to you today. Let's not equate production relationships with economic relationships. Some people say that economics is the science that studies production relationships. No, what does it study? Economic relationships. Only Marx's Capital can be called the science that studies production relationships. So what is the subtitle of Marx's Capital? It is a critique of political economy. Marx's Capital is not an economic work at all, it is a work of critique in political economy. Critique in political economy is a new type of discipline, a new type of science, which Marx refers to as historical science. Of course, it is not the same as the history we talk about today. This new type of historical science is still in its developmental process. Marx provided the initial demonstration of it through his work, Capital. It allows us to describe the formation and evolution of irrational production relationships. Traditional scientific rationality cannot penetrate into this realm. Bill Gates has presented us with an important question, sparking a discussion on how to enhance capitalism. However, this question inherently implies a utopian ideal. When we deeply contemplate the capitalist system from a philosophical standpoint, we encounter ontological questions. We ponder the nature of being and existence, don't we? Approaching the capitalist system ontologically, a key observation emerges: the capitalist system is essentially a power structure, a system comprised of irrational forces. We then attempt to describe it rationally and elevate it to the status of an economic system. Often, we only perceive the economic aspect of the system. Through scientific formulas, an economist with a doctoral degree approaches it through mathematicalization, employing mathematical models and formulas to predict the future trajectory of economic activities. This is work that economists take pride in, but unfortunately, it frequently leads to incorrect predictions. What is the underlying reason for this? In reality, what was the system's original object? It was the non-rational, the pre-rational. Its original object had a sensory nature to it. Financial business we see today is quite terrible. New financial products are regularly developed, right? Let's take the root cause of the subprime mortgage crisis, which is an example of this invention. When I lend it to you, I have a claim against you. Let's say your business produces a product, but I will lend you money before you start production, which you have to later repay, and I am a creditor. Now, the creditor is able to sell that debt itself as a financial product. In essence, what I do is I sell the future I have agreed upon with you to someone else. In other words, I sell part of the future of your business to someone else and earn my profit. And then, I can use that future I sold as a means of repayment to get another loan to do more business. We know that this is an invention of business schools, and I think it's a nefarious invention. Detached from the real basis of human physical production, it buys and sells a future as a virtual reality. But any virtual economy must ultimately find a real physical connection, that is called the real economy, right? We make the vast future realm an object of sale. That is not good. Economic experts mock me and say that if you think we are just a new scientific theory, a new financial theory for bad people, show me your value standards. Science today refuses to talk about values, right? So when I first heard about this approach, I just said that financial science is not all good. That's it. Let's not elaborate further. When a new technique is invented, as humans are truly intelligent, we will expand its use with astonishing speed. This technique allows those relatively less developed countries to bear the cost of the crises in developed countries, in the process of trading the future. Isn't that right? They have already shifted the future risks in advance. China have high foreign exchange reserves, right? We take our foreign exchange reserves to buy U.S. Treasury bonds, and we foot their bill for a possible future crisis. It's not good. The above understanding of the background for our current philosophical exploration is important to fully understand, analyze, and discuss Bill Gates' ideals.